Hi, Sarah.
Doing? I have a few doors to close. I just got the train go by. For some reason, the train clangs its thing every time it goes by now.
Oh. Well,
We copied on the stuff from Greg and from Mark.
yes, I was.
Okay.
And I've printed it all off and actually read it.
Oh, good.
I'm missing one of the members of the Finance Committee.
What do you mean?
Well, I have Sarah, Andy, Mark, Peter Twining, Mike Pratt, Dean. Who am I missing?
Mark?
No, I got Mark.
Mark, Mike,
Mike Pratt, Dean,
Dean,
Peter Twining,
Andy, Peter,
you. I'm missing
Maury.
Oh, God, how could I forget Maury?
He's not coming tanight.
Oh, and then I'll cross out his initials.
Maury and Andy are both not coming.
I'll cross out Andy's too.
People kind of didn't get back to me about their availability, and then with the holiday weekend, it was too late to post for Tuesday, so I went for Thursday.
Anybody else besides Greg? Andrea, are you on tonight? Nope.
Greg's not on yet.
No, I know.
Chief Fitzgerald is on.
Ah,
Hey, Sarah.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. In the fog.
In the fog, I know, down the bottom of the hills, the same way.
I look at my phone and it says sunny and 75, and I said, I don't think so.
I know. I've been on vacation this week, trying to get out in the boat. I can't see the bow of the boat.
Maybe you're on vacation because I saw your vehicle in front of your house in the
Yep.
middle. Yeah. Not a good week for vacation.
No, not at all.
Light on participants.
so if Maury's not here, are we not going to do the district discussion?
Right, unless Greg has something to share.
I was just curious.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Dean, how you doing?
Where's my- Yeah. Sarah, I'm still working nights.
Okay,
I'm probably gonna have to check out about 8:15.
okay,
Okay.
yep.
I
no
did.
problem.
I got through the first two meeting minutes. I don't have any comments. The one,
121 and 128,
yes.
okay.
Thank you.
You okay with them?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. The 2, 3, took a while to find my notes, but I'm getting through those.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, Peter.
Good evening. Hi, Sarah.
Happy-
Hi. And I see Mike Pratt is also on.
Yep, I'm here.
Mike's phone. Waiting for Mark. And Greg. Greg was a little bit nervous of whether he would have an adequate internet connection. His mother's not well and he had to go up to visit her today, so I don't know where he is. Well, we have Manchester by the C2 on. Who's that?
Sarah, would that be Chief Clary?
Don't know. Or Greg.
Could be Greg.
I'm here.
Fire.
Oh, hi, Greg. Are you must be Manchester by the C2.
Yes, let me get my video on here.
Okay, good. Two. We're waiting for Mark. He just is joining. So we have Mike, Mark, Sarah, Dean, Peter. So we have a quorum. Andy and Maury can't make it. So I will call the Finance Committee meeting to order at 7:03 p.m. on Thursday, July 15th. The first item on our agenda is to go over the dispatch options and the associated costs. Greg sent us out some documents at about 1 o'clock this afternoon. Did people receive those and have a chance to look at them?
Yes, I received them and more or less have had a chance to look at them.
Okay,
I have not looked at them yet.
okay.
But even before we start talking about them, just exactly what do this, bringing this topic to us, since we've already voted on this as a matter of financial matter only, what are we looking for in this discussion, Sarah?
Is
That
to
is not addressed by our earlier vote.
understand the options that are being presented in the public forum and kind of what our sense is on them.
Okay,
From a
what are-
financial aspect only, nothing to do with, you know, what the public may or may not want. It's just looking at it financially.
Okay,
And I kind of have the expectation that it would kind of be up to Chief Fitzgerald and Chief Cleary to actually look at the regional center to see how the services compare with what we have. That's not something we would become involved in.
fair enough. Thank
Okay,
you. Yep, I understand.
Can I ask a question, I guess, of Greg?
yeah, this is Mike. Yep.
Yep. I'll be honest, I read the email. I didn't get a chance to look at the attachments, but I see these, you know, whatever options 1 through 4, right? But I guess really, is there even a fifth? Not that we're going to choose this, but there's even a fifth choice which is that going to full 2-time dispatchers, because that doubles our current cost, you know, from 390 to 780. So really, there's like
Right.
5 different ways to go.
Yes, correct. I agree.
Okay, but clearly you didn't even list that one. That's not even on the table. Is that right?
Well,
Everything's on
no,
the table.
I put it out there as if you want to guarantee that we always can dedicate a dispatcher to an emergency call, then, and you don't want to go to regional, then you
Yeah,
need to double.
I'm
You
not
need to double.
advocating anything. I'm not saying my vote.
No,
I'm
I
just
know.
kind of I'm just trying to make sure I got all the options in front of me. And really there's 5, right?
Correct. There
Yeah,
are
and
those
it's,
five.
it's kind of in the detailed summary. A little more,
Okay.
basically saying it would double the cost. Our current costs.
And I can't, for some reason I can't find it now, but I think you were saying somewhere, Greg, that there's a strong lean to go towards option 3. Is that?
I don't think we should be discussing strongly leans one way or the other. We need to look at these from a financial standpoint and kind of figure out what makes sense financially. Because when, you know, when I looked at this, one of the, you know, thoughts I had is there's a desire for more frontline personnel. And maybe if they considered, if the rec they felt was viable and considered going to that, then that would free up money to hire more frontline people they need. And then you get into the point, do you want frontline people or do you want dispatch? You know? So those are
Okay.
the types of things we should talk about.
I maybe didn't articulate my point well, but and again, I'm trying to process. We got a lot of information today, not a ton of time to go through it. And I'm just remembering, maybe I'm not remembering correctly, that I thought Greg had some conversation with the Board of Selectmen. Again, I don't even want to pick the word, but there was some kind of thought towards going a certain way, or no, maybe I'm confusing it with something else. I don't know.
Greg?
Yeah, this,
What I would
the
what I would
selectmen really
appreciate
haven't,
here. Sorry, go ahead.
well, I'll just answer Mike's question. I would say the selectmen really haven't weighed in on the preferred option. I think there's strong interest on the board of pursuing the regional option, and what we do with the lobby staffing question really hasn't been discussed at any great length.
I just realized what I did. I'm confusing this and Mark's email with option 3. So just
Yes,
strike
okay.
everything. Forget it. Forget it.
That makes sense.
We got
I
too much,
get that
too
now.
much today. Too much today.
Yeah,
So I would appreciate is Greg actually talking to us about the 4/5 options. I see them as being summarized on page 2 of what I think is his email. The first being the 24/7. So if I understand that, that's essentially continuing a dispatch with less skilled personnel. Am I saying that correctly, Greg?
so the numbers 1 through 4 assumes that we do go to the Regional Center for Dispatch Services.
True. I'm
And-
sorry. You're absolutely right. Yes.
And then numbers 1 through 4 then say, okay, with that as an assumption,
Yes.
how do we want to deal with this so-called dark station? I'm a little hesitant to use that phrase, but that's the phraseology that people tend to use.
And I think that's the analysis, understanding that electing the regional approach has a minimum dollar amount. It's got some cost to it. I do understand, because you have to make the lobby or whatever is the police station. But I want to be sure I understand, okay, with that assumption in mind, each of these 4, I think are worth just taking a moment for you to carry us through them. Be sure that people like me understand exactly what each of the 4 options is and its associated cost. So, Greg, are you frozen or?
No, I'm happy to do that.
Okay, I mean, I think it would only take a few minutes if you would just help us through. So option one is a 24/7. It does assume we've gone to the regional. I do understand that.
Right,
Because I
so,
think
so,
decision here.
so option,
The regional, if you don't, then you've got a series of things to do. If you do go to the regional, you have a series of things to do.
Okay,
Correct.
so let's let Greg go through them.
so again, assuming that we decided that we can best provide the dispatch services through the regional center, and then we say, okay, how do we deal with the need for staffing at the police station? So, because if we lose our dispatchers, we lose our receptionist. Because the dispatchers have that dual role. So if we get rid of dispatchers, then we could replace them with receptionists and have that 24/7 coverage. That's option number one. And that has an all-in cost of just under 300,000.
Right.
So that's 24/7 coverage of the lobby with a receptionist. We'd want to give them some admin duties of some sort because they're not going to be busy every minute of their shift. So in option number two, instead of doing that all three shifts, instead of 24 hours a day, you would do it 2 shifts or 16 hours a day and not have the station staffed with a receptionist during the midnight shift.
And then
So
just to
that we-
put numbers on it. So a shift, what would the hours of those shifts to be? Is that,
So, yeah, it's 8 to 4, 4 to midnight, and midnight to 8.
very good.
And so if you eliminate a shift, you basically are reducing your cost by a third. So instead of just under 300,000, you're just shy of 200,000. You're around 90,000 a shift, basically. And then in 2A, a subset of 2, instead of the full 2 shifts, it talks about a shift and a half. So instead of 16 hours of reception coverage, you would have the 12 hours. So I put that 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., which is capturing 95% of any walk-in traffic. Very, very little walk-in traffic occurs into the later evening or during the wee hours of the day. And then in option 3, it is still doing, it's picking up on that 1.5 shift, so that 12 hours a day, but instead of having a dedicated person during the day shift, the 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., we would do some shuffling of current staff and bring in, so I should back up. To understand this fully, we currently have a public safety administrator who gives basically 30 hours a week to the police department and 10 hours a week to the fire department. So if that person was dedicated 100% to the police station during the day, they could assume the receptionist duties. And then we would then need to backfill her time and give the fire department some administrative support, and then hire a part-time person for the evening reception duties. So that has a lower cost. Again, it's about $95,000 because we're taking advantage of some existing staff.
But that staff, so that cost of that staff, that existing staff is in that number, is that correct?
It's in our
No,
current
so
budget.
that's it. That 95,000 is above and beyond what we're currently spending.
Thank you. Okay, that's important. And what do you estimate is the cost of the current staff that ought to be added to the 95?
No, that's irrelevant because they're already on board. They're doing other jobs.
But
Just
that's
gonna
Right,
be-
part of-
I was just
Part of-
showing the incremental new cost is what I was trying to show.
Okay, but then is that a fair example, a fair comparison then? Because you're trying to get the cost of the service. you're not trying to get just the new cost, it's the total cost of the service, as you have in the other options, you put the
No,
total
but
cost.
they're fulfilling duties for the police department outside of the dispatch piece. They're just sitting at the desks for when the 1.4 people a day walk in to service them. Otherwise, they're doing their normal job.
Oh, I'm sorry, they're doing their normal job. I
Yeah.
see.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
Excuse me, I was not understanding that. Okay.
Right.
I-
Yep. Yeah. No. What Sarah said was correct.
Okay, well, thank you, sir.
So then option 4 is the other extreme from option 1, and that is we rely on the safe lobby approach. And we basically don't provide any reception personnel. So that has a zero cost associated with it for an operating perspective. There a little bit of capital cost to set up the safe lobby. But you rely on the audio video connection to the regional dispatch center. And they respond directly to the person who has come to the station and can radio in the person on patrol who can be there within a few minutes. And if it's a dangerous situation that they're fleeing, they can lock themselves in the lobby. That's what we mean by a safe lobby.
So
So
those are the operating
Those-
costs. And the
Correct.
Capital costs. How about the capital costs with each item?
Well, let's go back to the other page that he gave us, which was a cost comparison between in-house and regional.
right, so that's in that dispatch options summary.
Yeah. Because that includes the capital costs.
Very good,
Yes.
yep.
Yep, that does. So if you look at the third page of that document, it has the cost comparison.
Which of the 4 options does this reflect?
So this is independent of those 4 options.
I think
So
if
this
you
is-
look,
Excuse me,
Under-
this is, okay, this is the other decision. Do you go regional versus?
Correct. This is focused on the dispatching function, not the reception function.
Got it.
So here, and this assumes not having the two dispatchers. This assumes just having one dispatcher. So you see that total operating cost in-house, just under 400,000, 391. And you have some new costs that we currently aren't spending because of the new computer-aided dispatching software that has an annual expense of 15,000 a year. But we do have grants that we received, the 911 grants that offset this cost. So the net town, so you add up those first 2 numbers and subtract the third, and that gets you that 335, 772. So, and as indicated, that includes the reception function, because the dispatchers can serve as the receptionist. And then dropping down to capital cost, the big expense that we face from a capital needs on the short term is purchasing the new CAD software, this computer-aided dispatching software, about $190,000 purchase price, and then it has that annual fee that you see up above in the operating. There are additional costs, over the years for updates and for radio console upgrades that would have to happen. Conversely, on the regional center side, so at least for the first 10 years, it's offered at zero costs. So we don't have any operating expenses. The cost for staffing, I actually didn't update the numbers here. They don't quite correspond, but to the options 1 through 3. So that if I were to amend that to correspond to options 1 through 3, it would say option 3 is that 95,000 instead of 46. And then the 250 goes to just under 300, 290. And then the safe lobby cost as a capital expense is right around 18,000.
Hey, Greg. Hey, Greg, how long has Essex been doing this?
Essex has been there for, oh boy, I want to say 6 or 8 years. No, not that long.
Didn't it open in 2016? Or was it before that?
5 years. No, it was before that. It opened in I think it was
That's fine. It's
12,
more, it's
2012.
been more than 2 or 3 years. It's 5, 6, 7, 8, something like that.
Yeah, it's 6 to 8 years is what I would say.
A good chunk of time and
Yeah.
no noticeable problems, I would assume.
They had some hiccups at the beginning. When it was being run by the sheriff, there were some problems. Essex wasn't as impacted by some of those problems as some of the larger communities that had joined in the beginning. But it's fair to say that Essex and the other communities, as far as I know at this point, are much happier now that the state has taken over and is running the center.
I guess, sorry, I was coming at it more from, you're saying Essex is, they're that, whatever it's called, dark office, whatever.
Right.
I'm less concerned about, like you said, the operating side, which just sounds like they got the kinks out because the state took over, but I'm just curious more on, they've had this dark police office and seems to be okay.
Right. They have dealt with that just fine. They don't have complaints about that situation.
Okay. All right.
Greg, can you just talk a little bit about the in-house solution and what the potential is to have that second dispatcher backup function or whatever the costs are associated with that type of thing?
So meaning if we don't go to the full 2 on every
Well,
every
I think
shift?
if we go to the 2 full on, or if there's other options in order for our in-house to replicate the regional center.
Right. So again, to guarantee it, to make sure that it is instantaneous, or that as soon as that critical call comes in, we have a dedicated person at the very beginning of that call, we would have to have 2 on. So right now we have 1 on, so you're doubling your cost. I mean, 95% of the cost is staffing. So that 390 becomes 780, 782, or 84. So at present, what we try to do is, if there is a significant call that we know is going to be a longer event, we work to bring in a second dispatcher. That can be an officer off duty who can come in. The chief has performed that function. So we try to get somebody in there as quickly as possible. Now, it takes 10 to 15 minutes for that to happen. So for a large fire event, that's a couple hours in length, then that certainly is a help. It doesn't provide that dedicated coverage in the first 10 to 15 minutes. This is sort of the cost benefit analysis. We have very few large fires, thankfully, every year. It's less than, if we have 1 a year, that's a lot. Now, there are medical events where it is helpful to have that dispatcher stay with the caller and walk them through until the EMTs arrive. Typically, we're able to do that. Our dispatchers are not that busy normally, but again, you can't guarantee it. So there are times when there are are simultaneous calls for medical services. And there are other calls that are coming in. And you don't know the nature of that call until you pick it up. So that's a little bit of a long-winded way to say that to guarantee what the fire folks are really looking for, which is having that guaranteed dedicated dispatcher from the get-go as soon as that call comes in. The only way to do that is to have two people sitting there waiting for those calls. That's a big expense for us, and it's, you know, in my mind, it's hard to justify that. Not to diminish the importance of having that dedicated dispatcher when the need is there, but the need isn't there that often.
But still, if you don't have the second dispatcher, then your in-house services are somewhat different than the rec services.
That is correct, yes.
Now, what happens to cell phone calls? I thought they went to the regional center. Am I wrong?
They used to. All cell calls are handled by three state-run centers. Well, the North Shore here in Middleton, I think Worcester, and there's one in Northampton, I think. But local dispatch centers can receive the cell calls from within the town. So a few years back, Chief Conley made that switch for that the cell 911 calls come directly to our dispatch people when it's made from within the boundaries of Manchester.
Okay.
So the regional center has two dispatch operations. They have a dedicated dispatch operation for all the cell calls, and then they have a dedicated dispatch operation for the cities and towns, the 5 or 6 cities or towns that have signed up with them to provide the dispatch services. So they actually have two centers, if you will.
But Greg, if we went to the regional dispatch, obviously both landlines and cell lines in town would go to Middleton, right?
Correct. They would both go to the center that's focused on town service or city service, not the 911 center, because we've already switched to just for 911 calls to be within our boundaries to our dispatch. So that would go with us.
Can you talk a little bit about Chief Cleary's desire to hire additional full-time firefighters because of the problem with the call firefighters? And to what extent, if we went to the regional center, would that free up money to help cover some of that cost?
Sure. So right now we have the four crews of 3. So we have 3 firefighters on duty 24/7, and then we have the chief on during the day. So the standard rule of the national standard for fire safety is anytime you have an active fire, you need 2 people on the outside and 2 people going in to battle the fire. You're never supposed to send in 2 people into a fire unless you have at least 2 people on the outside providing support. So that's a basic safety standard. And so if in the past, when we had an active call roster, our 3 people on duty would go, and they would be joined by 1 or 2 or 3 call firefighters. And we would have a pretty good crew on site for an active fire. And then, of course, a larger event, you call in mutual aid, and over time we have a good crew, an even larger crew. But that initial response and the quickest response from town right now, if it's 2/3 of the day when the chief isn't on duty or on weekends, we only have 3 people. And we have to wait for mutual aid to come in. We typically don't have that call firefighter coming to help.
But I had on that, Greg, I'm sorry, am I cutting?
It's
On
okay.
yeah. Normally our police would respond to the fire as well, right? At least one officer would be there. And
Yes,
would
but
they
they're
be
not,
able to fill the training to be one of the second one out, that stays out while, the second person out while the other three are firemen?
right. So
was-
we tried to negotiate that with the police in this last couple, it was part of the early negotiations. And we haven't made progress on that level. But we did try to pursue that, but they do need the training.
Right, of course.
And,
With a small town, it'd be really good to encourage
I agree.
sharing.
I think longer term, that's the model I would love to pursue. I would love a public safety department where people are cross-trained. And I'm told I'm spinning to make that happen.
Right. Another thought, while I'm, a thought occurred to me on where the pressure for the dispatch is so much fire oriented. Would it be possible to transfer the medical part to the police department? Let the fire go to the regional dispatch, so they have their 2 in, 2 out, and then have a local dispatch for police and medical.
We won't save anything. I mean, that is just,
Well, we get the response time that we're supporting our fire chief.
But we would gain at least the dispatch. We would bolster our dispatch service. Unfortunately, the regional center doesn't allow that. It's all or nothing. If they're going to take us, they want to take us both fire and police. They don't want to bifurcate.
Thank you.
So in terms of staffing, what the chief would like to see is 4 crews of 4. So that would be adding, well, we have a floater right now. So we would need to add 3 new firefighters. And in round figures, each firefighter costs $100,000 a year all in, when you consider salary and benefits and legacy cost. It's about 100,000. That's a good working number. So from fire perspective, they would love to save the 300,000+ we're currently spending on dispatch, and that would allow us, without increasing tax burdens and spending amounts, shift that 300,000+ to hire the 3 new firefighters to get the crew to be 4 on at all times.
Mike, do you have any more questions?
No, I know where I live.
Mark, do you have any questions?
I would just say that I think that part of this is similar to the discussion we had about 2 ambulances versus 1, because even if you spent the 780 grand and you had 2 dispatch people, but you got 3 calls, you go into the same situation. So it's just when you eventually run out of time and people. So I think it's a difficult situation, but my view would be, I think it would be good to have people at the fire station or the police station 2 out of the 3 shifts if possible. But you can't deny the efficiency, the redundancy, and the cost efficacy of the regional dispatch, especially now that it's been, took a bunch of other people to vet it, to work out the kinks, and we will be the beneficiary of that. And Greg, as far as I recall, on the last selectmen's call, there was, I think Eli and 1 or 2 others were going to go up and visit the facility, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last part.
I think one or two of the selectmen were going to go up and visit the facility, the dispatch.
Yes, a number of them visited just this past Tuesday and had a 2-hour session up there and got a very detailed insight into their operations, and we're able to ask a lot of questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think we can't argue against the efficiency, right, of the regional anymore. It sounds like they got the kinks out, you know, to Mark's point. I think you never want to be a first mover here, but we're not buying the first model of a new car, right? It's been a lot of towns using it for a while, so they got the kinks out. I personally would not go for the regional plus option 4 where everything's dark. I think we need probably a happy medium. You know, maybe it's number 2, maybe it's number 3. Number 1 seems kind of silly just because it only saves 45 grand, right? I mean, that's almost like not worth it, right? But number 2 or 3 kind of is a happy medium to me, right? You're going with regional, you know, we're not going to be dark 24/7, right? It's going to be some kind of, we'll have 8 to 8 or 8 to midnight or something, right? I mean, I don't know. That seems to make sense to me.
I think the only thing I would add to Mike's comments from my point of view, because I share them, is that we might try options 2 or 3 in an experiment for a period of time and see how that goes, and then come back within the 10 years, you know, I'm going to say 3 years or something, and see whether options 2 and 3 are serving us well or whether we should adjust them. That is, I would go to the regional. I would choose one of what I think is the more moderate options and then evaluate it after a reasonable period of time.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, and didn't we just have in our last meeting the discussion about the difficulty we are having filling dispatcher positions?
Yeah,
Yes, we did.
If we're always a little short, and I'm sure we're not always, but whenever we are, the best we can do is go to an officer and have an overtime situation. So I think the depth of the bench is a bit of an issue of us doing it ourselves.
There may also be a concern that the length of the decision is kind of affecting morale there. So, you know, we can't really string this out too long because it will default to this will be our only option.
Sarah, where would you like the discussion to go from here? I think you've now.
I think we should have a motion. And if our motion is that we would support, for financial reasons, support moving to the rec and adopting either the 2 shifts daily or the 1.5 shift daily to cover the police station lobby during the portions of the day when it receives the most use.
I'll make that motion.
I amend the motion to say, and that we review that choice of 2 or 3 at some reasonable period of maybe a couple of years or 3 years to see if it remains or is the right option.
Okay,
And this is regarding the financial accuracy of these decisions, not whether we do them or not, right?
Correct.
we're making
Analyze.
a recommendation with respect to the financial.
Yep.
The townspeople need to make the decision based on the financials of how much they want to spend. So this is our financial recommendation. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mark seconds it. Are we ready to go to a vote?
Is the motion as amended?
Yes. Okay, I'll do a roll call vote. Mark,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes. Did I miss anybody? No, I don't think so. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the 2021 year-end net impact on the fund balance. Did you get something from Andrea on that, Greg?
We have some preliminary estimates. So it's going to be a little higher than what I was estimating when I spoke to you last. So it's looking like we will be close to $1 million to the good in terms of under expenditure combined with higher revenues. And it's about 50-50. We're running about 50-50. So about 500,000 in underspending and perhaps a little bit higher than that on the revenue side.
So based on the information I looked at, it looked like we were expecting an estimated decrease in the fund balance of 1.2 million. So now we're saying the net decrease would only be 200,000 because we're putting $1 million back in.
Correct.
Hey, Greg, this is Mike. Can you just drill down to 30,000 feet? You know, the extra revenues was blank and blank, and the reduced expenses was XYZ.
So in terms of the revenue side, we again were conservative in this current year in terms of the excise tax for vehicles. Those came in very strong again, and it's probably the biggest area of revenue. Combined with, I don't have it in front of me, but again, permitting remains strong, surprisingly strong. Renovations and home improvement projects, those added up. On the expense side, certainly we had excess funds in the health insurance line. That was probably the biggest single underspent line. And we did reduce that line going forward into next year because we did anticipate that. But part of that was because we also would unexpectedly were given a premium holiday from our carrier because of their expenses were so low. During COVID, people weren't doing a lot of elective surgeries, and so there were significant savings for health carriers. And so our carrier passed some of that along to us as subscribers by giving us a premium holiday for a month. In any case, we had a couple $100,000 extra there. And that's like I say, that was the biggest underspent line. The rest are really in terms of expenses. It's 5,000 here, it's 8,000 there. In terms of departmental totals.
Yeah, no, that's great from my perspective. So at the end of the day, what's the number? Is it 5 mil or just to the nearest million?
$1 million.
No, not the delta. I mean the total.
Right. So that'll put us.
What's total free cash going to be roughly?
Oh, I can tell you what Andrea had estimated it would be at the end of 21, which she had estimated as of June 30th, 2020, we had almost 6 million. And she was expecting it to go down by 1.2, but if we put $1 million back in, it goes down by 200,000. So our reserves would be like 5.8.
So let's just call it 6, just to keep it easy. So it's still at 6. Okay. And that's in fiscal 20. That's in fiscal 2021 where we did the 0% tax thing, right?
Right. This would be as of July 1st of 2021.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Is that consistent with what you think, Greg?
Yes, and then for 22, we were much less conservative with those estimated receipts. We boosted those up in order to have the 1.5 instead of the 2.5.
Right.
And then we have we do anticipate using a larger amount for capital. So we should, I know we've been saying this, and each year it keeps staying the same, which is a nice problem to have in the long run. But nonetheless, I do anticipate us seeing a different trend at a year from now.
Meaning that you see more aggressive spending? Is that the trend you see?
The trend meaning we should see a decrease, a more significant decrease in the fund balance.
Okay, thank you.
But
Yep.
Hey, Greg, just keeping it high level. I mean, CapEx in fiscal 2021 was roughly 3 mil. And again, we're expecting another roughly 3 mil or even higher in fiscal 2022, right?
Yeah, we dipped down to 2.7 or 8 in 2021. And in 22, we're over 3.2.
Right. So I'm rounding a couple hundred grand, fair enough. But I'm just
Yeah.
saying we're keeping the gas pedal down at 3 million a year in CapEx, which for us is a good number. Because
Yes, no, I agree.
if we get too much bigger, then we're fixing too many roads in 1 year and all that stuff, right?
Right. No, I agree. That 3 million plus or minus is a good number for us. Barring the big projects,
Right. Like not right. The 5 and 6 million and the 20. Right.
Right. Exactly.
Any more questions on the fund balance? We'll move on to an update on the regional compost negotiations. Mark sent out an email at about 5 o'clock. People receive that?
I'm happy to just summarize it
Thank you.
and apologize that it was that late. Greg has been great about getting the info to me, some of the previous info, but also I was on the call with the Board of Selectmen. And the bottom line is Greg was successful in having Black Earth propose several options for the Board of Selectmen to consider, and those options were attached to the email that I sent. And after proposing the option, discussing what recommendation,
Can everyone mute yourselves? We're having trouble hearing Mark.
I'm having trouble also. Mark, could you say the last, dozen sentences again? I'm sorry, I didn't follow you.
Yeah, I've got some kind of background note. Oh, there it went. It's off. So in any event, Black Earth at Greg's prodding provided several different options to choose from regarding costs, length of lease, all these kind of things. And at a recent Board of Selectmen meeting, the recommendation was made for option number 3, which saves us about 25% from where we are now, and provides for CPI increases, but no increase, as Greg mentioned at our last meeting, if we increase our number of people subscribing effectively, which is only 700 people now out of what, Greg, 2,500 households. So we could get a lot more people into it and not have to pay anymore. My other point that I'll raise today is that the capital costs are essentially all being covered by Black Earth under the new deal, other than some costs that we've pretty much already incurred, other than our owner's representative, which they're in the process of selecting now and which was approved at the last town meeting, or previous to the last. And then finally, we're about to get into the details of the contract that include, focus on many of the things that we've talked about, like performance benchmarks, impacts on the environment. If some of these things don't or do happen, that the town would have the right to terminate, which obviously Black Earth is going to make every effort to mitigate the chances of that happening because they have so much capital invested. And then finally, the schedule, if things go according to plan, would be to start in September and commence operations in March of 22. So from the standpoint of our concerns and theoretically why I'm even sitting in the room for these discussions, I think Greg and Chuck Dam are doing a great job of getting us where we are, and the contract will be critical because we do need those protections.
Thank you, Mark, for helping us out with this.
Thank you, Greg, for helping Mark out.
No, thanks, Mark. You did a nice job summarizing, and I appreciate it.
Anyone have any questions on the Black Earth compost?
Just a question on process, Mark. What's the process from here in the, I assume, the negotiations with the selectmen? Is it to resolve on option 3, or is it, I'm just a little confused about that aspect.
Yeah, the business deal has been approved by the Board of Selectmen. So it'd be up to Greg and Town Council. And fortunately, Greg has invited me to continue to partake. To get the contract in a final form so that, Greg, I don't know whether the Board of Selectmen signs it or you sign it on behalf of the board, but I assume that's the process now.
Right, they will see the final form and
Right.
authorize me to sign after they see that final form.
So there's been an agreement. Okay, I wasn't sure. There's been agreement at this point. It's a matter of just documenting.
Yeah, so agreement in principle, and now we've got a little bit more work to do on the finer details of the contract.
So, hey, Greg, Mike, just a quick question. So if I use 700 households, I'm just going to call that 25%, just to pick a number, right? So 25% are doing the composting, right? And I think if I've heard you over the years, the biggest expense with our waste, removal company, it's the weight, right? It's the tip fee. And so
Correct.
that's why when people compost it, it helps everybody, the town, financially, right? But even if, let's just say, I know this will never happen, but 700 households, incremental start doing composting, right? So that would drastically reduce, the weight, but that's not really we're not gonna feel that in the pocketbook, right? Or would we?
No, you would. You would
would?
see a reduction. You would see a reduction in our disposal cost because our disposal cost is weight based.
Okay.
So yes,
Okay.
we pay for every pound. It's by ton.
So there's some background noise there. So we should be still thinking of the right balance of carrot and stick to get more households to use it, right?
Yes. It saves us. It definitely can save us money.
Okay, thanks.
And whose effort is it, Greg, to try to increase participation? Is that on the shoulders of the DPW, or does Black Earth share that? Or since Mike's point, I think, is useful as a double edge. Is more we do, the lighter the effect is on the trash collection weight. In order to get more people, what are we doing?
Yeah, so we haven't done much of late. The Sustainability Committee has been the one who has probably helped the most in terms of trying to promote participation. They have done some things in the past, and we have talked not too long ago, we have talked about the need for another PR campaign to really try to sell it to more people.
And how about the stick, raising the bag fees? Is that a bad idea? Because then people will just be dumping stuff in the woods? Is that the thought, if you raise the bag fees too much, or?
Yeah, there is some of that concern, but I don't think we're there. You know, so some members of the Sustainability Committee have pointed to Hamilton, where they have instituted a mandatory participation. So if you don't have your compost bin out alongside with your trash doesn't get picked up. The selectmen aren't too eager to do that quite yet. But you know, that's sort of one extreme. Are there some
I
other
think
measures?
I think you raise the bag fees before you do that, right?
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
What's been Hamilton's experience, Greg, with that particular program?
So it's only a few months old. So I don't have a good read on that. I understand that some people will put out an empty compost bin and the trash gets picked up. So I think it's mixed, and it's a slow, you know, work in progress.
Yeah, yeah.
Greg, what's our bag fees cover? Is it roughly half of what we pay our trash company?
It's about half.
About half. Okay. Yep.
Anything else on the compost or trash?
I wanted to make a comment about the size of the operation. The 50 tons a week, or whatever it is a lot more than the needs of the town. I'm all for composting. I do it. But it's a risky site. I'm concerned that that there isn't enough flexibility if we find this operation is too big. Is it basically we're leasing this land to them in exchange for free compost pickup? And is that a decent rate of land use for this area? These are some of the, you know, are we getting into the composting business as a town? Those are some of the questions, I guess.
So DEP will limit the upside of what they can process.
No, I saw the limits in there, but they're very high.
Yeah, but that's not for us to discuss.
Okay.
If we've got somebody like DEP who's putting the limits on, I think we have to trust them, don't we?
Well, a similar thing happened in town meeting where the state has a blasting spec, but we seem to want something a little more restrictive.
So what the contract will require them to always have space for town needs. So as our composting participation grows, they will have to reduce the amount that they bring in from other communities or other vendors. You know, the landscapers. The landscapers bring in the bulk of their materials. So that's a performance measure that we will insist on, that they always have to have room for us.
Well, it's not so much that, is if the scale of the site gets too big, if people don't realize how much the state has approved there, can we kind of negotiate down in the scope? Because it is a sensitive site.
Right, and again, there will be performance measures in the contract that say if indeed truck traffic becomes too detrimental to the road or becomes a traffic problem, et cetera, then we have the right to intervene and scale them back.
I think some of these things are important.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%, Dean. You raised some good points.
Anything else? Next on the agenda is an update on town projects. I happened to notice in the paper this morning about the 6 million culvert project. I just don't know what projects are going on and where we stand in them from a financial standpoint.
So we're a bit in between in terms of actual work on the street, so to speak. What you refer to, Sarah, is the culvert, the Central Street culvert, and then the upstream, the redoing the seawalls along the central pond and related work to that. So we are in line. We're competing for a FEMA grant, a large FEMA grant. It's in total, that project is just under 6 million. We're requesting 4.5 million from FEMA's BRIC program. And we have made it past the first round, and we're on to the second funding round or review round. And I'm told we're the only New England project still in the running. So I think that bodes well for us. Normally they like to have a geographic distribution of their funds. And so if we're the only New England project, that I think is in our favor. We won't know the outcome of that probably until the end of the year, November, December timeframe. If we do get that funding, then we would be able to proceed with that project in the fall of 22. So a year from this coming fall. And that will be a major project. That'll be a major disruption. It's probably a 6-month construction window. And that road will be closed for good portions of that time and detours set up. So it'll be a major project in terms of its impact on the town.
But Greg, from a purely financial point of view, we're in good shape, right? Because, let's assume hopefully we get the green light, we get this grant.
Right.
So that's 4.5 million of the 6. We've certainly got the other 1.5 million kind of in cash ready to go. So we're like,
exactly.
We're ready to go, right? I mean,
yes, precisely so. So
Greg, how many review steps are there? We're moving to the second review. Is there a third or a fourth, or is there any predictability of how many rounds of review there are?
So I don't know the exact details of that, Peter, but I believe it's sort of the next round, and then it goes to the head administrators to make the final decision. So there's another staff level review, and then it goes to the big boss.
Yep.
Gets signed off. So other projects, we are back out to bid on the Tux Point floats and the piles that'll support those new floats. You may recall that we went out to bid and got extremely high prices, primarily because we had such a tight time frame on that original bid. So we had hoped to get that done before this season got underway. And the bid documents, we were requiring it to be done before 1st of July. So those came in ridiculously high. We didn't go forward with any of those. We have been told by contractors that if they had a much longer window of time, that their prices would be much more in line with what we have budgeted. So we're hopeful that we'll receive good bids in the next month, and they would have until Memorial Day to finish the project. So they basically have all winter and spring to complete the work. So we'll wait and see on that. And then we do have some additional pipe work that's out to bid now, along with some road paving projects. And so those are out on the street, and we'll be waiting to hear back. A little nervous about pipe prices and just the current spike in materials. We're not sure if our dollars are going to go as far as we had hoped, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see how those bids come in. And the state may be well aware, the state repaved Bridge Street out towards Beverly. We weren't able to convince them to give us some curbing, which we were hoping they would do along that stretch with the sidewalk. But they have agreed to reconfigure the intersection at Harbor and Beach. Make that more standard T intersection rather than the two slip lanes that are there. I think that will certainly improve safety of cars and also better pedestrian crosswalk safety there. So we're not sure of the timeline, but that should be happening sometime this summer or fall. MBTA redid the decking on the bridge on Harbor Street as well. That's a temporary fix. They just replaced the boards. It has some structural issues, and a full replacement will be happening. Again, we don't have a time for that, but it will be within the next year or two.
So as we fall through, because of the structural, we'll at least have nice looking wood around us as we go down to the.
Correct. Yeah, true enough, Peter. Yeah, it's a Band-Aid. It's a Band-Aid.
It's a Band-Aid.
And then other capital monies, we're moving forward with a major overhaul of the elevator in Town Hall. That is a project that will be getting underway, as well as the handicap access ramp to the police door. So a bridge basically from the Town Hall entrance platform porch over to the police station porch. So that work will be getting underway. Seaside 1 was recently completed. That paint job and carpentry work is finished. So that came out nicely. So that's done.
Great looking job.
Yeah, no, it looks good.
Yeah,
Sewer lining, we've wrapped up the Harbor Loop. That is now 100% complete. And we've done some additional stretches of sewer pipe. So we've made some really good progress on addressing our infiltration and inflow problems, the I&I. We have submitted all the paperwork to the state. We're waiting to hear back from them as to their agreement that we've completed sufficient amount of work to remove the consent order. So we'll see how that unfolds over the next few months. Expect by the end of the fall, first of the year, that we should have a final sign off on that work.
Greg, is there work being done on the actual treatment facility and stormwater issues with respect to it? Is there work being done of that kind also in this list?
So certainly at both treatment plants, both the water plant and the sewer plant, there's a number of upgrades, pump replacements, filter replacements. Not a lot of stuff that's very visible to the public, but important behind the scenes mechanical work that's important to maintain. So that's the focus of a lot of the water and sewer dollars right now. On stormwater, we've got a long ways to go. We still have a lot of mapping and assessment that still needs to be done. So there's an EPA program, MS4 is the shorthand title for it, for the stormwater management requirements, new requirements. We're meeting the deadlines for analyzing our stormwater, but our drainage system is quite old and in pretty poor shape. Every time Chuck digs a hole and he finds something new, he's shaking his head. So there are a lot of issues there, and it'll be a slow slog to catch up on all of that drainage work that's needed. But we're chipping away.
Do you think Mother Nature's going to win the battle?
There will be times where she definitely is. We've got a lot of catch up, and it's only getting worse with the storms that we're seeing.
Yeah.
But we did surprisingly well the past few weeks. despite a lot of water. We got over 10 inches of rain in the last 2 weeks, which was a lot for us.
Yeah,
But
that's a third of the
timing of
year.
it, yeah, yeah. We got lucky, the big downpours came mostly at low tide, so that's a big help to us. So we got lucky.
Yeah.
Any more questions on town projects?
Greg, just a quick one. I noticed on Boardman Avenue, the seawall, that we replaced a portion of. Was there some additional work going on there recently?
Yes, at the gate, the
Right.
opening.
Yeah.
So it's a more official gate with solid footings and a gate that'll slide down and actually be much more watertight than it ever was.
Okay, so that was a town. That was a town project, not a resident thing or anything, right?
Right. We actually FEMA gave us some additional monies to do that.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Next item on the agenda is an update on grants.
So the big one that's outstanding is, as we mentioned, the FEMA BRIC grant. There was a recent award for a regional project that we sort of tagged on to at the last minute for the Board of Health. It's with Essex and Hamilton Wenham, and then we joined, and the Board of Health will be working with their counterparts in the 3 other communities. So the grant will provide a full-time public health nurse that can support the 4 towns and the part-time nurses that we currently have, and also provide a 3/4 time social worker for all ages. So the details of that are still being worked out, and the Board of Health is going to be working, as I say, with their counterparts on how to shape that going forward. It's a 3-year funded program, and at the end of the 3 years, the towns will need to decide if it was a worthwhile project that they want to try to continue with or not. So that's just getting underway. We're waiting to hear on a couple of planning grants to help with the downtown area, sort of strategic plan more broadly. And then the second one is more focused on parking and strategies for better management of parking and options for adding parking. So we're waiting to hear on those 2. And the grant with the LCD study is continuing. It's shifted away from the 40R and is focusing on 3 different scenarios, looking at different options for modifications to the LCD, the limited commercial district. So that work is progressing, is getting close to being completed, and the planning board will be working on those products and deciding which, if any, of those 3 scenarios they want to advance. So Bayonne has 2 grants from the Seaport Economic Council. One was for the Tux floats. It's paying for the majority of that project. And the other one is a engineering study to see if additional floats can be added off of the commercial pier to provide slips for the commercial fishermen, rather than having them be out on moorings. Free up some moorings and allow them a little easier operations at a slip rather than being at a mooring.
So that's
those
along
2
Beach Street, kind of?
Well, it's sort of connecting Reed and Morse
Okay,
Pier.
okay,
So it'll be in that area. So most of the dockage floats would be added along the wall as you drive into Masco.
okay, yep. Anything else?
Yeah, I'm reaching my brain. I think I've covered most of them. I left my list at the office, so I'm trying
Oh,
to
okay.
recall. But I've captured the bigger ones at least.
Okay, any questions on grants? Next item on the agenda, I don't know if we'll be able to cover because Maury's not here. It was an update on the regional school discussions with Essex Finance Committee. Do you know anything about that, Greg, or not?
So, if you may recall, this past spring, Essex and the Finance Committee, and Essex in particular, had a series of questions and wanted to do a deeper dive into the district's finances and future projections. And so a subcommittee working with Avi has been sort of pulling out sort of the basics of their finances and their projections, and are working on some new presentations that'll be given to folks starting in the early fall. So we anticipate in the September timeframe to provide these sort of background presentations and additional information on the finances, contract negotiations and trends, so that as we, prior to getting into the heart of the FY23 budget process, everyone will have that background information. So they're working on those presentations, and we'll be scheduling those, as I say, in the early fall.
Okay. Any questions from anybody? No? Next item on the agenda is review of minutes, which I sent out a little while ago. We have 3 sets of minutes that have been written and still need to be reviewed and approved. The first one is from January 21st.
I've looked at them. I thought all 3 of them, with the exception of 1 or 2 very, very minor spelling corrections, were fine.
Okay,
Me too.
Mike,
Sorry.
we couldn't hear you, Mike. Mike?
I didn't know if you were reaching out to me.
Yeah, did you have a chance to look at the minutes from the 21st, 28th, and February 3rd? And are they okay?
At this point, sure. Fine.
I think that was a yes.
I think that was a yes also.
So do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
You do.
Second.
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 Okay. All in favor? Are you okay, Mike?
Sure, yes. Yeah.
Yes, I got the yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, dear.
Oh, the minutes.
Gotta love technology, huh?
Yeah, oh, gosh. Other business for the finance committee that the chair did not think of putting on the agenda. Does anybody have anything they want to raise?
Yeah, what period of time was I reappointed for?
3 years.
Thank you.
And did you go, were you sworn in?
I haven't known- I need to do that. Okay, I will.
Yeah, and you have to go, didn't you get something from Sonia and from Diane Bucco?
No, that's why I asked the question. I've gotten nothing,
Okay,
so I didn't want, I just, just simply wanted a little information.
well, I was reappointed to the ZBA and I received a letter from Sonia regarding the reappointment, and then Diane Bucco sent a link to the state website for the open meeting law, because you have to acknowledge receipt of those materials. So I think Sonia's on vacation.
Again, yes, I'm very familiar with all of that. I just haven't received anything.
Yeah, I'm just gonna quick comment on that. I went in and did get sworn in, and just to be brutally honest, I had a really poor customer service experience. So I'm not gonna go into it here, but Greg, if you want to follow up with me, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Mike. I will do that. And Peter, we'll make sure to I'll follow up to make sure you get the letter.
Okay, I know, I'm happy to do all of it. I just, nothing has happened so far.
Yeah, okay, sounds like it might have fallen through the cracks.
I have 4 ZBA members whose terms are up and they have to all be sworn in before July 28th, or I'm not going to be able to hold a meeting.
Ah, okay, I didn't realize that, okay, well, be a little more attentive.
Technically, once the terms have expired, you can't participate in meetings. So that's kind of hard when the reappointments are done after the end of the period. So we do the best we can. Anybody have anything else? Greg, now you mentioned something about us meeting at some point with the Board of Selectmen to kind of go over financial goals for the next fiscal or something, and you were talking about September. Is that
Yes.
still being considered?
I would like that. I think that is helpful for both
Okay.
boards to sit down, and helpful to me to hear from both groups. So yes, I would like to try to schedule that. Like I
Okay.
say, or probably, the earlier part of September if we can.
Okay, so you'll kind of get in touch with us and
Yes,
kind of give us a range of dates. Makes
exactly.
sense. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
So I think we won't hold any meetings in August, and we'll wait to hear the timing of the meeting that Ray's going to try to pull together joint with the Board of Selectmen.
Sarah, is it your general MO that we're gonna stay Zooming or try to meet in person or do some of both? If you have some view on this?
Well, that's a pretty sore subject this week.
Yes.
What the town is attempting to do is to get technology, which was approved in the budget, in order to have in-person and also Zoom. But the board would be in person.
I see.
But what's the timeline on that, Greg? September?
Yeah, so I'm hoping by the end of August, we have that operational.
Yeah, ZBA switched to in-person and that created some consternation.
Okay, thank you. I didn't know that.
We're working through it. We're working through it. All's okay.
Anything else? I will take a motion to adjourn. Now that the fog's cleared, Mark moves to adjourn. Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. Have a
Take care,
good
Greg.
evening.
Thank you, everyone.
I said, good night.
Good night.
Good night.